I'm Dr. Benjamin F. Chavis Jr., and this is how to get your money right. On this episode of How to Get Your Money Right, we're very pleased to have one of our nation's leading entrepreneurs, particularly in the hospitality industry. Welcome, Evans Charles.
Thank you so much, Dr. Chavis.
So, D.C. native.
Yes.
And now you own one of the major hotels here in D.C.
Yes, very excited.
So tell us, how long have you been in the hospitality industry?
I've been in hospitality since, let's say, around 2010, 2009, 2010. And prior to that, I was investing in some small residential real estate in Philadelphia. And I tell people I played Monopoly in real life, like literally trading in my 4 small houses for my first hotel. And from there, we've built a portfolio across 7 states. But it's been super challenging to get here into D.C., my hometown, because of the high barriers of entry to get into a market like D.C. But to be here now, blocks from where I grew up, is extremely exciting.
There's an old axiom says, if you own the land, you own the future.
That's right.
So
That's right.
Your real estate experience before owning a hotel, tell me what your journey has been from focus on real estate, I guess commercial real estate, to now being a hotel owner.
I started off, with me walking onto the football team at Temple and obtaining a scholarship, and within those 5 years of me playing football, getting a master's degree. So undergraduate in psychology, graduate in education, but not knowing what I wanted to do once I came out of school.
Okay.
So it wasn't until I was a tenant and my landlord started speaking to me about residual income and creating wealth. And I wasn't trained that way in college. I was trained to go out and have a great resume and how to become the best employee that I could become, work a job for 30, 40 years and retire and live happily ever after. So from that lesson that he taught me about residual income and creating wealth, I started buying books and educating myself. And then a light bulb went off in my head. And I said, you know what? Real estate is what I want to do. I grew up single mom. I grew up humble beginnings, so I know what it's like to be broke and to some degree poor. So that was the introduction as far as the mentality.
So you taught yourself real estate?
I did. It was all self-taught. I did find someone who I shadowed, a mentor that started, walking me through properties, investment properties, and kind of educating me on how to invest in what I would call value-add real estate, or so real estate that were coming out of a foreclosure or something of that nature. So my first deal, it was a $32,000 row home in West Philadelphia that I had 97% financing. I put up $1,000. I used my credit card. I went to Home Depot. I bought a bunch of materials, and then I recruited cheap labor from the neighborhood, and I managed everybody, and I fixed it up. And then I sold it, and I saw $25,000 in one check. I was literally making $25,000 a year at that time. So to see one check that reflected what I made an entire year was just, it was a sense of euphoria. But I didn't take that.
It was proof of concept.
Proof of concept. But I was so disciplined that I didn't take $1 of it. I didn't tell anybody. I reinvested the entire 25 back into my next deal.
That's great.
Yeah.
What is the name of your hotel?
The one that I just opened is called the Hyatt House.
The Hyatt House.
Right there on 9th and O, 2 blocks from the convention center.
That's good. That's very close to the convention center.
Yeah, close to where we are here, closest hotel to Howard University. Yeah.
That's prime location.
Yes, location. That's what it's all about. But I've partnered with many of the major brands. So this is my first partnership with Hyatt. So I've done the most with Hilton. I've partnered with Marriott. And I have several brands throughout the different franchisors that I just referenced or so. And like I mentioned, we're in several states or so.
Your development in real estate and then hotel, hospitality industry, was there somebody that you looked up to as a mentor, somebody who had a success record?
Absolutely. I tell this story. I was literally heavy into the residential real estate, And I guess my mentality was, at one point I had a goal, I wanted to own 100 properties or so and be a landlord. And I was getting a haircut, and my barber started talking to me about a African-American guy from DC that owned a hotel in Miami. And I couldn't imagine anybody that looked like me owning hotels.
Yes.
And I'm like, who's this guy? He mentioned his name. And then I go to the doctor later that day and I pick up Black Enterprise, and he was on a cover of Black Enterprise promoting his new book. And this was Don Peebles. So
it must be Peebles.
Yes. So I never met him, but the example he set was what gave me the inspiration. I went and bought his book, and I never read a book so fast. I probably read it in hours, right? Because it was so relevant to me transitioning from residential to commercial. And he was speaking about how he started without a lot of money when he got into the business and how he leveraged some of his political relationships to get to where he is. And he was the chairman of this organization called NABHOOD, the National Alliance of Hotel Owners and Developers, Owners, Operators, and Developers. And they were having a meeting in 2 weeks in Atlanta. I jumped on a plane, I went down to that meeting, and I saw all these people that look like me that own hotels. And I said, this is what I want to do. And I said, I'm not coming back to the next meeting unless I have a hotel. And lo and behold, I bought my first one before that year was up.
Where did you buy your first one?
It was a small town called Martinsville, Virginia.
I know Martinsville.
Yeah, a little bit north of
very
Greensboro.
Famous race car driver.
That's right. NASCAR has their two, well, at least at that time when I owned the hotel, they have 2 major races there a year. But that was just, kind of the level of entry point that I needed. It was probably the least expensive hotel that I've ever done, but that's how I got my feet wet.
What would you recommend to someone who's contemplating getting into the hospitality industry? Is the opportunity widening or is it narrowing?
Well, today is a tough environment for just real estate in general. I mean, it's just, and DC is a tough market today, based on just what's happening, here in the nation's capital and around the country or so. But what would I recommend? Education, that's going to be really key. And at the end of the day, this is hospitality, but it's a real estate play, and it's a 24-hour business within a piece of real estate. And it's not like the franchises, like the fast food franchises where you just own the business. Here, you really own the real estate. So educating yourself from a finance, from a real estate perspective or so, and you have to partner. You can't jump into something like this because it's too much complexity. You need to partner with people that really understand operations. And what we do is we hire third-party operators to operate the hotels, and we just asset manage them or so. You can get into this business by being just an investor. I have many people that just invest, but at the same time, I give them a seat where they can actually watch me and learn. And at some point, if they're inspired enough to go and do their own hotel, they have that opportunity. Attending workshops, going to conferences, networking. I mean, there's a whole host of things that I would recommend if you really have an interest in this industry.
Evans, when you are back now in D.C.
Mm-hmm.
and you go to the neighborhood where you were raised up,
mm-hmm.
How do the people, first of all, has it been gentrification or is the neighborhood still the same?
There's definitely gentrification, but it still has a strong element of like the block where my mom grew up. Most of us have been there for 30 years and most of us are still there. So yeah, there's still a strong element of the history.
The reason why I asked that question, how do the young people in the neighborhood look up to you and your success?
Well, it's a lot of young folks may not be aware of who I am, and I'm looking to make more of a difference and try to change that or so. But a lot of people who grew up, and a lot of my peers, I'm getting a significant amount of support and love just to see one of their own kind of doing what I'm doing now. But my thing is how can I reach back and bring more people here because it's cool to be the first, but you want company, you want people who also grew up with adversity and humble beginnings like you did to have some taste of success and to overcome adversity or so. But overall, it's been well received. I've been welcomed with open arms, and I love being here and interacting with my people here in DC.
Well, your location is optimal. I mean, that close to the convention center. And one thing about the D.C. Convention Center is year-round.
That's right. That's right.
We do some work with Events D.C.
Yes.
That owns the convention center. Well, what is your kind of future projection in terms of getting more hotels, expanding the market? Give us a sense of where you think the future is.
Well, one of the things that I want to speak about that's in our pipeline that I think is going to be pretty impactful is a deal that we were awarded by the District of Columbia about 3.5 years ago, Hill East, which is right there where the old St. Ed's Hospital used to be.
Right.
Right across from where the new stadium is going to be, where the Commanders are building a $3.7 billion new stadium. So we're building an entire community, a mixed-use community with affordable housing, market rate housing.
You say you're the developer?
I am the developer, yes, and I have partners. Mainly my partner out of New York, BRP, Meredith Marshall and Jeff Flannery are my main partners or so. But it's going to be affordable market rate residential, retail. We're building a hotel. We're going to have condominiums, townhomes. So we're building an entire neighborhood. And it's going to be waterfront. And overall, it's about a $650 million project over 3 phases. But the impact that we have to be in charge of that kind of budget and how many other, CBEs or MBEs that we can empower and provide opportunities, employment opportunities from construction to operations. I mean, we can really be generation changing and super impactful. So to take a neighborhood like that has, Reservation 13 that has not had a lot of activity and to completely activate this waterfront land is something that's super inspiring. And at some point, I wanna give back. I wanna do seminars. I wanna provide education. I wanna put this information in books. I wanna do speaking engagements. I wanna be impactful and really touch the future.
I wanna go back to something you initially said of the importance of education.
Mm-hmm.
On the street, not only in D.C., but across, particularly in Black America, there's this myth that says, well, you really don't need an education. Just go out here, hustle, stack some paper, and you can make it. Tell us how important having an education, in whatever degree, is to building a pathway toward wealth.
I think education is extremely important, and I don't mean it in the sense of you have to go through a formal route to go out and get, multiple degrees. I did that, but there are also many, super successful people that do not have degrees, but they still found a way to educate themselves. Right. So, I mean, if you don't really understand what you're doing, and then it's going to be challenging to be successful or so. But in addition to being educated, I think, I don't know if you can teach this, but instinct is something that people tell me that I have. And maybe that's from my upbringings of being raised, and coming off the porch. I'm not going to say the streets, but to some degree, right? Just growing up in the neighborhood and having good instincts. Another thing that's been extremely instrumental is the relationships that I've built. I don't have any level of success for anything that I've done that did not involve someone else providing some form of assistance towards it. And that all derives from a relationship. So being big on cultivating relationships and nurturing relationships, and it shouldn't be just transactional, but always thinking about how you can be there for other people. You'll never know when you need them, but if you just go out and sow the seeds and do right by people, that good karma will come back to you, and that will help, cultivate success.
Well, you certainly have the right instinct and the right intuition. And about building relationships, we've had several successful entrepreneurs, and to the letter, all of them say that one of the key factors in their business success is being able to build lasting relationships.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. So in terms of what you used to do in athletics, do you see many of your former colleagues also going into business?
Not enough. And I think about how I was raised. I was raised by a single, 18-year-old mom, migrated here from Haiti. growing up in the height of the crack epidemic here in DC, so tough environment where my father figures were my coaches. And that's where I learned discipline, mental toughness, and things that I carry over in life and business, particularly discipline. I think discipline is a recipe for success if you can create good habits and do things over and over again. And I think about like what we went through as athletes, those two-a-days, and how, being an athlete while you're also a student. Like some students don't understand how tough it is to be a student athlete. When you have something that's taken up 20, 30 hours a week of your time and you have to study, right? That's an amazing thing if you can, manage both, right? Yes. So if you're able, and many of my teammates were able to, but for some reason, a lot of them don't translate what we learn in athletics to business, but the few that does, I'm super proud to see that, but I think more of us should be. And I just think that we've learned some key fundamental skills that could be transcended to business and life by playing in sports.
That's great. Washington, D.C. is the nation's capital, is undergoing expansion, development. Mm-hmm. In terms of, there's not just in Washington, but there is this problem with gentrification mm-hmm. in many urban areas. But in some areas, I also see a return to the urban center by communities of color. Mm-hmm. How do you see the issue of diversity in the hospitality industry?
Well, I'll speak about African Americans specifically, right?
Of course. Okay.
And you look at, from a consumer perspective, what we spend, or even from a consumer perspective, from a travel industry and what we contribute to the hospitality industry, we're nowhere near reflected if you look at the percentage of what we spend versus ownership in the space or so, or not even, leadership positions within the operations element of it.
Well, let's quantify. In America today, what is the economic impact of the hospitality industry, just broadly speaking? It's multiple $1 billion.
Yeah, I don't have the precise numbers just handy off the top of my head, but yes, I would definitely say
billions of dollars.
No question.
And everybody talks about that in the African American community. We spend almost $2 trillion as consumers.
That's right.
And to get into the productive ending of the economy or ownership of property remains a challenge.
Very much so. Very much so. We represent nationally less than 2% of the hotel owners or so. And
less than 2%?
Less than 2%.
Although we still have a lot of hotels.
Still have a lot of hotels.
Yeah.
And just to even provide even more color on the less than 2%, a REIT like RLJ, owned by Bob Johnson, Leslie Hale is the CEO. They own over 100 hotels. I don't know what their number is today, So that number is also in that. So when you talk about just individual owners or companies like RLJ or so, it's even smaller. So we make up a fraction of the ownership space here.
So there's a lot of room for growth.
A significant amount of room for growth. Yes. And organizations like NABHOOD, I know that there's a school of hospitality here at Howard University trying to cultivate the next, generation. You have, institutions like Cornell that has great hospitality programs, my alma mater, Temple University or so, just opportunities for just more people to get educated, learn the space, and hopefully we can put a dent in that number and start to just be more reflective within the ownership, particularly in comparison to what we are on the consumer side.
You're a living success story. Do you take time out to share the success of your narrative?
Almost 100% of the time when I'm asked to come and do this, because I know what it would have meant for me to have someone that looked like me, grew up like me, right, that's speaking to me with, where I can be inspired and I can get educated and I can be a mentee or so. And I just, if I'm not touching the next generation and being impactful in that way, then it's just not all about me and how much success can I acquire. So to me, that's what's fulfilling. So being a mentor, I have a scholarship that's endowed in my name, and I'm super excited that I just learned that a kid from Archbishop Carroll, my alma mater here in DC,
Yes.
applied for and is going to be an awardee of my scholarship at Temple University to the Fox Business School or the School of Tourism, Hospitality, and Management or so. So I'm super excited about that. But yes, all as many opportunities that I can fit into my schedule, I'm always trying to give my time back to the kids.
The hospitality industry has so many subsidiary industries. Can you share what the wide range of subsidiary opportunities are in terms of the hospitality industry, so people can get a broad sense of all of the different opportunities?
Sure. You think about it as a real estate place, so there's all this construction that's happening in order to build these hotels or renovate these hotels. Significant amount of supplies. So from a supplier perspective, you know, rather it's toilet paper, rather it's towels, rather it's there's just so many things that you touch when you go inside of a hotel. We have to buy all those things from different vendors or so. Obviously, operations, you know, the entire staffing of a hotel or so. There's a lot of consultants that we hire from a development perspective, from operations perspective. There's just so many elements to it, and so many subsidiaries. You know, you can work for the brands. You know, people who work for Marriott, for Hilton. People who work in design, in construction. We have to hire designers to help us pick the flooring, the curtains. There's just, I mean, I can go on and on as far as just how many different industries hospitality industry touch.
Do you plan to leverage your success in the hospitality industry, possibly in other industries?
I live, eat, and breathe real estate. So as I mentioned earlier, I do want to be more diverse. So housing, associated retail, mixed use, and more place-making communities is kind of where I'm looking at from a standpoint of just direction that expands, you know, beyond just hospitality. And then my background is I am a trained educator. Again, at some point, I want to educate. I want to provide knowledge, you know, to the next generation.
So, educator, entrepreneur, visionary, disciplined brother.
Yes.
We're very grateful for the informative session on how to get your money right with Evans Charles.
My pleasure.